Years ago, when I was still in the world, I remember watching a movie called The Highlander. In this movie, there reached a point in time when a fictitious group of people who could not die were gathered together for what the movie, if I remember correctly, called The Quickening. This quickening was a final showdown of these immortals where they could kill one another by way of beheading each other until there was only one left. This final man left standing was to receive a special prize. The theme of this final battle was, there can be only one. Satan likes to mock the truth in this manner, and he often uses Hollywood to do so. The reality is, our Creator's Word testifies that there was going to reach a point in time, at the time of the end, when the last 153 first fruits were harvested, that there would only be one left to restore all things. This is what His Word testifies to. Satan can mock this all that he wants to. The reality is, this is the way that our Creator has set it up, and this is His show. And like I said, this is what His Word testifies to. If you want to mock this, you are simply mocking His Word. If you want to laugh at this, you are simply laughing at His Word. If you want to scoff at this, you are simply scoffing at His Word. If my saying this to you makes you angry, you are simply angry at that which His Word testifies to. The reason why you refuse to believe this is because you already believe something else to be true, and in your pride you won't let go of it. You are choosing to hide behind the belief that you are already saved. Believing something to be true does not make it true. In Revelation 12:9 we read, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives all of the world. He was cast out into the earth, and the angels that followed his rebellion were cast out with him." If Satan and his cronies were created by the Most High and sent here and empowered to deceive the whole world, what makes you think that you are exempt from being deceived by them? The final showdown that we are in is simply a matter of believing Yahweh's Word and letting it testify to what is true, letting it testify to itself, and then it is a matter of acting on the truth by laying siege to it and doing what it tells you to do, and doing so with the complete desire to have your heart circumcised to be made in our Creator's image. He is the one who set this showdown up this way. He's the one who set this the programming process that He set up the way that He did. He is the one who said that there will be only one whom He would send to you to restore all that is true at the time of the end. He did it this way so that you can know who to listen to, so that you can return to the truth that will deliver you. When the dust settles, only those who are found standing with the truth will be found standing. His first anointed son said in John 18:37, "You ask how I am a king? Into this cause I was born, and into this cause I came into the world, in order to be a witness to the truth." He told His disciples the night before that the truth that purifies us is His Father's Word. Line upon line, here a little, there a little, He is telling us that He was sent into the world to bear witness to His Father's Word. All who are of the truth, or all who are of His Father's Word, hear my voice, He says. Folks, this is not complicated. The reason why you are not receiving it is because you are the self-proclaiming elect that Yahweh Elohim sent me to bear witness against. His Word testifies to who His elect are, and His Word testifies against those of you who call yourselves His elect in vain, while bearing His name in a desolating way. His Word tells us who His elect are in Revelation chapter 14. "These are they which are not defiled with women." They reached a point where they were no longer defiled by whoredoms to their Creator, because they became virgins. They became pure before the Most High's face. "These are they which followed," or they walked in the same pathway as the Lamb, wheresoever He led them. They were purchased from among men to become the firstfruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no lies, or no falsehood. They are without blame. They are unblemished. A few verses later, He adds to their description in verse 12, "Here is the endurance of the saints. They are those that kept or held fast to Yahweh's commandments and had the same belief that Yeshua has." Our Messiah told us that to become perfect or without blemish in the same manner that His Father that is in heaven is without blemish. He told us that we are made perfect through the truth, and He said that the truth is His Father's Word. Why don't you believe Him? Most of you do not even obey the least of His commandments, like wearing blue tassels or fringes on the borders of your garments. So the rest of His statutes and judgments certainly have no place in your rebellious hearts. You could care less about becoming as He is because you could care less about His righteousness. Verse 12 here says that the elect have the same belief that Yeshua has. He believes that we must live by every word that came out from His Father's mouth. He said so. He believes our foremost priority above everything else needs to be on pursuing after his Father's righteousness and his kingdom. He said so. I sometimes reflect back on when Yahweh started to pluck me out from the fire. I remember him showing me that the whole world was deceived. During this time, he showed me that there were only 204 left of the 144,000 to be sealed. Over the years that followed, 51 of these 204 were sealed, and they died and to be resurrected later at the first fruit harvest. And there were only 153 to be sealed that would still be alive in the flesh, and these 153 were harvested on last year's Feast of First Fruits as well as those who slept. I remember crying out to him, Father, even if I am the only one left who obeys you, I want to obey you. I did not desire to be the only one. My heart's desire was just that if no one else was, I wanted to. I had no idea at the time that it would one day come to this. I cried out to him to be his, and he planted in me a desire to pursue after him and gave me a resolve to obey him no matter what. And this resolve became my soul's hunger and thirst. Coming to his call starts with us choosing to come to his call. He increases the measure of his 7 spirits that he gives to us to guide us as we increase in our hunger and our thirst for his righteousness and his kingdom. I had no idea what obeying him was even about at that time because I was deeply buried in the lies of Christianity. He just showed me that I was deceived and I wanted out. I wanted what he wants to give us, and I desired to obey him so that he would give it to me. I did not know that there would come a point when none would restore with him except one. I didn't know about these verses, and I certainly had no idea that my petition would one day be manifested in the reality that I would be this only one left standing. Yet it has. But for the sake of looking at it from another perspective, let's suppose that this has not come to pass yet, and the one that will be left to restore all things is going to be someone else. First of all, it is important to establish that there will come a point in time when there is only one left. His word says so. In Daniel 10:21, he says, Verily or truly, and referring to at the time of the end, I will declare to you, or I will manifest to you, that which is recorded in the scripture of truth, and there are none, or there are no others that sees with me, or that repair the breaches with me in these things, except for Michael my steward. In the preceding verse, he says that this Michael will come to you from Greece. One of the first prophecies that he fulfilled through me was his telling me to flee to Greece back in 2010. He did so in order to later bring me from there, against my will, and in the belly of a giant ocean-traversing plane, to add additional testimony to the third tier of the sign of Jonah. His only begotten Son also said that only one would be sent to restore all things. He said this in Matthew 17:11. Elijah truly will come first, and he will restore all things. According to Malachi, this was going to happen before the great and fearful day of Yahweh's wrath. Our Messiah identified John the Baptist as a type of Elijah to testify that the one who would be sent to restore all things would be sent in the spirit of or in the prophecy of Elijah. The rest of the prophets also said that there would be one particular servant sent at the time of the end. There would only be one because the first witness was already sent bearing witness to his Father's word. The rest of the prophets gave an incredibly detailed set of prophecies that were to unfold at the time of the end to identify this one servant. Our Messiah and Malachi's prophecies say that the servant will come in the form of a type of Elijah. This means that he is going to come onto the scene in a manner similar to Elijah and in the prophecy of Elijah. The testimony that I've been sent to you with is a perfect and exact match to Elijah's prophecies. Elijah was even fled for 3 years before he was empowered to call down fire that day in his showdown with the servants of Baal. In the same manner, as of July 24th this year, my 3 years of walking naked and barefoot will be up, and I will have been fled for 3 years. Elijah said in 1 Kings 19, and Elijah said, I have been very zealous for Yahweh Elohim of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your altar and slain your prophets with the sword, and only I am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So if you believe his word, you will accept that there is going to reach a point in time, at the time of the end, where none are restoring with Yahweh but one, and he is going to come to you in the spirit of and in the prophecy of Elijah. And there's only going to be one. And today I'm going to speak about the zeal that Yahweh has sent me with to add to this match with Elijah that's spoken of in this verse. Zechariah's prophecy tells us that he is going to be sent on the scene with a small witness, and in 1 Kings 19 goes on to say the same thing. And Yahweh said, "Go and stand in the mountain before my face," and behold, Yahweh passed over, and a great and mighty wind, or a great and mighty spirit, rent the mountain and broke the rocks before Yahweh's face, but Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake or a shaking, but Yahweh was not in the shaking. And after the shaking, a fire, but Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a small, quiet voice. I want to point out here, too, that this past Passover was the third Passover that he has sent me with to observe in the restoration of all things. In the hypothetical scenario of this servant not being sent to you yet, let's suppose that we are approaching the time of the end and this servant is going to be sent onto the scene soon. Will you stand with him and do that which he restores when he is sent? Malachi said that this servant is going to tell you to offer up an offering in righteousness to the Most High. Will you offer up this offering to him when you are told to? Malachi said that the servant is going to tell you to remember the Torah that was given through Moses at Horeb with the statutes and judgments. Will you return to all of the statutes and judgments when the servant tells you to? Or will you pick and choose from what he reveals and restores and return to some of them, like some of you have done with the testimony that I have been sent to you with? Malachi said that the servant is going to cry out for you to turn to having a heart like the hearts that the patriarchs like Abraham and David had, so that their hearts will be turned back to you. Will you turn to having such a heart when the servant tells you to do so? And why will he need to tell you to turn to having such a heart if you already have one? Our Messiah said that this Elijah is going to restore all things, and Isaiah's prophecy clearly testifies that the all things includes the restoration of the Sabbath. If you think that you already have the Sabbath day correct, why does it need to be restored? Will you return to the restored Sabbath day when this servant is sent to you to restore it? And the restoration of the Sabbath and the restoration of all things would include the restoration of the seventh year Sabbath. Will you hearken to the restoration of the seventh year Sabbath when it happens, since you think that, that it has not happened yet? And what credentials will this servant bring to convince you that he is from the Most High, that the Most High has not already sent me with, since the prophecies have already been fulfilled? Here is the bottom line question. Is your whole heart's desire that if no one else in the whole world obeys him, that you still would want to be the only one who did? If no one else will walk with our Elohim on his narrow path, would it be your heart's desire to do so even if no one else will? The answer to this question is Yahweh's word, saying that there will be only one, testifies against you that obeying him is not your total resolve. His word identifies this one servant, and it testifies that he has been sent to you. And the evidence from the testimony that he has sent me with is none of you are fully seizing with what he has restored through his servant with a total resolve. As a matter of fact, with the exception of a very few people, none of you are seizing with hardly any of that which he has restored. Here is an example that adds further testimony that there will be only one. Last month was his Passover memorial that we are commanded to observe each year as a memorial of his Passover that he offers to us. I do not know of one other house that observed it according to all of our Creator's instructions and on the restored timing of it, except for my wife and I. According to all of his instructions includes observing his clean and unclean statutes so that we can be clean on the Passover night, since we're not able to observe it if we're unclean. If it was your total resolve to obey him, you would have found a way to do so, unless you were unable to because of being unclean from a natural cause, such as a woman's monthly cycle. The question that each and every one of us must ask ourselves is our desire to obey him a 100% hunger and thirst to do so? Or is it 80% or 50%? Or maybe it is 0%, as is the case with all of you who did not even attempt to obey his Passover memorial. Yahweh's kingdom and his righteousness has to be our foremost priority. It must be our total resolve. If our desire is 100%, it will be manifested in action. I will explain. First of all, this is not about me. It is about returning to having hearts like the hearts of the patriarchs. I am merely the one whom he plucked out of the fire and gave such a heart to in order to send you an example. If he had not plucked me out of the fire and given me a change of remnant, I would still be swimming in the swill. But the reality is, he is using me to be an example, to testify to the truth, and to testify to the hearts of the patriarchs. As the Passover approached last month, we were still snowbound in the mountains and unable to drive out. His word tells us that we are to set aside the lamb or goat on the 10th day of the month. No matter what, I was determined to observe his Passover memorial according to all of his instructions. I did not want to take the chance of not getting the animal on the 10th day, so I walked out of here several miles and several days ahead of the 10th day and got 2 animals so that I could set one of them aside on the 10th. I did not want to take the chance of something happening on the 10th day, like a snowstorm or something else going wrong. I did not want to take the chance of having a dead person touch me on the 10th day so that I would still be unclean on the 14th day and be unable to observe it. Is this your resolve? He puts tests and trials in our past like this to challenge us and to test our resolve. 3 days ago was the 10th day of the 2nd month. Our Creator puts such an importance on observing his Passover memorial that he provided a backup opportunity for us to do so in the 2nd month. In spite of all of the warnings of the importance of observing this memorial, I do not know of one other household that accomplished setting aside the lamb or goat to observe his commanded memorial, even in the 2nd month. If Yahweh placed in front of you circumstances or allowed them to be in your path that prevented you from obtaining the animal, he did so for a reason. I'm using my circumstances to illustrate that obeying Yahweh has to be our total resolve, and we cannot leave obeying him up to chance. We have to set out to obey him no matter what. If that means making preparations ahead of time to ensure this, then this is what we must do. I searched out where we would get the animal well ahead of time to make sure that an intact male without blemish would be available at the time. And I even had backup places available in case the first place failed. I am just using my experience to illustrate to you how our resolve and our desire to obey him must be 100%, and our efforts must reflect this 100% desire. If it is 100%, then it will be manifested in our actions in doing everything that is in our power to make it happen. If he puts roadblocks in front of us, then his doing so is for a reason. The reason might be to show us the need to get more serious. His doing so might be to show us that our resolve and our hunger and our thirst needs to increase. He gives us trials to refine us and to grow us. The reality is, our Creator puts obstacles in front of us to try us and to test our resolve to obey him and to refine us. And he does so to show us our lack of resolve so that we increase our desire to obey him and obey him no matter what. He rebukes and chastens those whom he loves. Seeking his kingdom and his righteousness is a matter of putting forth total resolve. And making sure that we are able to obey something as important as his Passover memorial is a matter of planning and preparing to reduce the possibility of something keeping us from observing it. Yahweh is using what happened with this year's Passover and backup Passover and no one else observing it according to all of his instructions and at his restored timing for an example. He is doing so to further stamp that there is only one who is restoring with him. I'll read to you what Elijah said. That is recorded in 1 Kings 19 again. Elijah said, I have been very zealous for Yahweh Elohim of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your altar and slain your prophets with a sword. And only I am left, and they will seek my life to take it away. And again, Elijah is the one that's going to be sent to restore all things, matching this prophecy. Yahweh did not set it up the way that this year's Passover unfolded like it did to lift me up, but rather he did so to illustrate that standing with him must be an all-in, total resolve on our part. His word says that he was going to send his end-time messenger of the covenant to you to be assigned to you. His Ezekiel 12 prophecy tells you to dig out and to flee like he has sent me to be an example for you to do. His Ezekiel 24 prophecy tells you to do as I have done with obeying his 5-point sign. The offering in righteousness that he has bid for you to offer up to him is for you to return to his Torah with the statutes and judgments to become as he is, and to cry aloud with me. It is an offering to him of restoring with me. Jeremiah 50 verse 28 we read, This is the voice of him that fled and escaped out from the land of Babylon, declaring the vengeance of Yahweh Elohim to Zion, the vengeance of his temple. Turn from your rebellion and flee to the mountains as I have done, like his Ezekiel 12 prophecy tells you to do. The reality of our Creator's word is there is not going to be 2 such servants that would be sent at the time of the end. There can be only one. Restore with me. He set it up this way so that you can know where the truth is, so that you can return to Him by laying siege to it, and doing so with total resolve. He did so to eliminate varying opinions that you would otherwise have to sift through. And His Word says that there would be only one. Believe Him. He asked you the question in Malachi 3, Behold, I will send my messenger to prepare the way before my face, and Yahweh will seek you and will suddenly come to His temple. The messenger of the covenant whom I delight in will come to you, says Yahweh of hosts. Who will sustain him in the day of his coming? And who will stand when he appears? Because he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap. His question to you is, which of you will not only sustain him, which of you will stand with him in restoring all things? If you do not believe that there would reach a point when there would be only one restoring with him, you simply do not believe His Word. You're lifted up above His Word. He did not design it this way to cause you to bury your head under the sand and to give up. He designed it this way to challenge you to stand with His servant and to restore with Him, and to do so with all of your heart and with all of your mind and with your entire life. This is the manner that we are to love Him, with total resolve. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim.